Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Live Data in Universal Plant Viewer. My name is Daniel Dolinsky and I'm the lead business process architect with CI Experts. This webinar will take about 20 minutes, so we will have 15 minutes slides and demo and 5 minutes for your questions and hopefully my answers. So the webinar is about getting live data into the Universal Plant Viewer system. We have two approaches to this. So you can either use the CI Experts 4D system in the customized version to create animation files. So that's the method we recommend for the cases where the people on site have no internet connection. So in this case, they can get these UPVF files from a central server. They are up to date as soon as they load them onto their mobile devices. And then when they have no internet connection, they can work with the data out of these files. But that's not a real live data solution. It's up to date up to the point where they lose the internet connection. The second method is that we have API functions via the UniversalPlantViewer API that allow the user to get values and colors modified live in the plant. And that's what I want to show you today. I will show you an example for the API method with the UPV API on Windows. That's kind of the classical example that we have here for live temperature and level data. And I will also show you how you can place specific HTML and JavaScript files on your web server and specify them using the web services so that they would be project specific. And you can simply create these files to read in data, for example, via MQTT, and then create status messages or color states and so on. We have also a showcase here. We are working close together with a company called MPDV, and they have data solution called MIP. And we get the data out of the solution live via MQTT messages. So I will show you how the HTML and the JavaScript is working for this solution. And at the end, we'll have 5 minutes for questions and answers. So for the first method, as I said, with a 4D system, you can convert your input data into animation files and then send the animation files to your UniversalPlantViewer users so they can put the files on their mobile devices. So that's the method you can use with a bad internet connection or no internet connection at all on site. So that's not really live, but you could get up-to-date data to your site. For the real live connection, you would read in the input data with some source code that passes the input data, then defines what commands to send to UPV, and then it's using the UniversalPlantViewer API to send the commands to the UniversalPlantViewer, and it's working in both directions, so we can also read in from the UniversalPlantViewer, for example, if something was selected and so on. Regarding the showcase, I would like to mention that there will be an additional webinar by MPDV. So that's the link, and we will send you a recording of the session. So you don't have to take this link down at the moment. So you can just copy it from the video as soon as you receive it. So there will be this webinar on the 9th of May. Unfortunately, it's only in German. Where we will also show our solution together with a lot of other companies that all read and write to this MIP solution here. So there is a lot of live data from different machines, smartwatches, and so on. Now let's go to the live demo. So first of all, I would like to show you the classical approach in the UniversalPlantViewer XE. So with the files tree over here, I can open up one of these animation files. So I go to this animation view and then I open up the view. So you might remember this example here from the 4D system presentation. So with the 4D animation files, I can jump to a certain date and then it sets the values and the colors according to whatever is saved in the animation file. So that would be the solution when you have no internet connection at all on site. Then regarding real life data, what we can do is with the API that we send the commands to the objects in the UPV, and that's a real life connection. So let's look at this tank, for example. You see we have a temperature and a level attribute in here. And I can use this simple access database, which is working as the database with the live data in the background. So that could be any solution, could be SAP or MIP or how all these typical data systems are called. So that's running in the background. I'm changing some values here. So I create new values, which are shown over here. And as soon as I do the update, you see that it's processing this information over here. So we get new colors, and temperature and level is now synchronized with the values over here. So let's just do this again. I press the button. I get new values here on the T240, and after 1 second or so, the data gets updated over here. So we have the same temperature and level in the model. So that's a real live connection, and it's working both ways. So we could also read in if something is selected in here. So I know there are a lot of users of our API in this session, so you already would know how we do this using the classical approach with the XE API. We can also use the API commands in the browser-based viewing solution. So what we need are basically two files. I know it's getting a little bit technical here, so perhaps you would like to have your admin with you. As I said, we will send you a recording of this, and then if you don't know about HTML and JavaScript, perhaps a colleague could help you to understand what I would like to show you in here. So basically, you just need to have an HTML start page for your project in the browser-based viewing. And in here, we have a div for the message content if we want to show a message overlay, a div for the loading bar, and a div for the UPV player. So very simple file. And the magic happens in the JavaScript file. So that's the other one called input processor, which is referenced down here in the code. So let's have a look at this file. It's a more complex example that you would usually get from us when we send you the link to the sample files, because that's the real world example where we read in the live data from MPDV from the MIP cloud. I would like to switch to the project just for a second. So I will load here this model. So it's just a hall with some robots, and please remember the yellow color here of this robot car. So that should change every second, minute or so when you receive a new MQTT message. So I keep this open in the background, and I go back now to my source code. So what we do here is we have some MQTT specific code where we connect to the messages of the MIP cloud, and we register a callback routine to this address. So that's the machine number, and that's the status here. So that's specific to MIP. That could be a different method if you connect to SAP or another system. The magic happens in here. So we wait for MQTT messages from this machine. So as soon as the machine state gets changed, it creates one of the MQTT messages, and we can pass the message. So we look into the status ID, and in this case, we just decide a certain color for this item. And what you have to do from our side regarding the UPV API, you can just create a command like this color command here. So we use the color command. We set the color name, which is defined here depending on the status that we get from the source data. And then we can use the color condition to set this. So the condition here is that a specific item, in this case the robot car, gets this color according to the state we received there. So that's all. You see, it's just 150 lines of code. So we connect to the MQTT server, we read the data from there, and as soon as we get a message, we decide what color to set. Now we've got the two files, and the question is, what should we do with these files? And that's the cool new thing about our browser-based viewing solution and the new web services. You can just copy them on your server. It can be the same server as the installation for the UPV, but it might be also a different share, so it's no problem at all to place this at a different location. And when you have them there, and as you can see, we received a message, so we have the black color now here. If you have put them there as an admin in the new folder browser, you can go to your models, and there is this I button here on the robot factory. So I can click the I button, and as an admin, I can use the edit button to modify the items here in this list. And your admin should look for this application path. So that would be different on English or German versions of the UPV, depending on what language you will have there. So that's the computer name for this area. It will be application path in English and Anwendungspfad in German. And in here, you can just select the path to this index.html. So this means as soon as you set it in here, when you open up the model in the browser, or if any user is opening this up, it's loading the index.html to display this model. So you can also use this, for example, to show your company logo on top of it using iframes, for example. You can have additional JavaScript windows in there. So it's really flexible. You can have one index.html and a lot of JavaScripts per model. So all of these plants that are in here in the list of available models can have their own index.html files. So that's the magic in the background. And as soon as we do this, it's linked to this index.html. So when I open up the model, this code gets loaded, and the JavaScript file gets executed. And here in the console, you see what's happening there. So as soon as we receive one of these MQTT messages, so this is just a JSON object, we pass it in our code, and then we can decide to set a certain color. So as you can see, it switched to yellow just a second ago. So we write a call and send it to UPV to set the color. And then we get these messages back. So here we have an error code of 0, and the error message is okay. So that was a successful color command that was sent to the UniversalPlantViewer. So basically, that's the workflow. You can create these index.html files as you like, with your JavaScript files as you like. You put them on a server, and then using the drop-down box, you can link them to your models. So we think it's a very flexible approach. You can really have different index.html files for different projects. And so it's really easy to handle. And you just need a couple of lines of code to do jobs like this, like colorizing objects depending on MQTT messages. So thank you very much for attending this presentation.